Welcome to the fourth episode of Sawdust Nation with AJ from Crafted in NJ and myself, Josh, from North Country Woodworking. Like always, we're going to start off with what's on your bench. AJ, what do you have?
Hey, man. Still got flags. I had just finished the challenge coin rack, which was actually a real fun and challenging build. I learned a lot about different techniques to use. I learned that I need to upgrade my router table, so that was a big thing. But also I did learn, we talked about that router bit to make the challenge coin slot. Worked out great. I have no problems with it. Now, the only thing is I wish I had a challenge coin to actually test in it because, I could put a little quarter in there, but I don't know what the thickness, if everything's going to fit right. But I sent some pictures off to the client. They love it. And hopefully they'll be picking it up tomorrow and be able to hang it up. Other than flags and challenge coin, I got probably the most challenging build of this journey so far, and it's a small wooden box. It sounds so simple, but I got asked by a coworker's husband to build a small box with a lid for some spent ammo that they pick up around the range. And I keep going. I don't want to, just slap a few pieces of wood together, nail it, and call it a day. I want to put a little bit of time into it, make it look right, and put a little design aspect in it that, they wouldn't see somewhere else. Hobby Lobby has boxes that you could buy for $5, but they look like they're made for $5. The other day on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, I just looked at some wood. I go, I got to build a box. I can't put it off. He wants the box. So let me just get to it. So I cut a few pieces. I did a half lap joint. I never did them before. I saw what to do and glued it up. I actually routed in. I did use your technique. I did not use the table saw to do the groove for the bottom panel.
Yeah.
I did use a router like you told me.
Yeah, just off experience, man. I've done it with the table saw, and that works just fine. It really does. It's just the more chance for error because you have to do multiple passes. With a router, you go in through one bit. Yeah, if you mess up, well, you don't have that much wiggle room. But, you have a better chance of getting a nice clean cut with that bit, especially if it's a decent bit.
It was actually nice. I did one pass, and I don't have, great router bits. I got the Harbor Freight specials, but it worked. I went slow, didn't burn, didn't destroy it. And I still have all 10 fingers, so I didn't, hurt myself in any way. And the nicest part was the piece of wood that I was going to put into that 1/4-inch slot. It was actually just tight enough that all I had to do was take a piece of sandpaper, I sanded in it, and it slid in perfectly. I'm happy with the way it's coming out, and I'm going to add a little bit of a flair to it as I see it. It's for spent ammo.
Ooh, flair. Like 23 pieces of flair?
No. Just maybe like a couple dowels, but I'm going to use brass dowels. So I'm going to drill a small hole, put some brass in it, CA glue it in, and then sand it down. So I figured, the brass will tie into what he's going to be holding inside the box. Got some extra hardware coming for it, and hopefully by this weekend I'll have it done. And actually he wants an engraving on top of the lid, so I got to do that as well.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to see that. Quick question. What kind of router table did you get?
I didn't get a table. What I did was, of course, looking on Instagram, and I was watching a video from Jake at JV Woodworks, and he's in a very small shop, and he has a flip down table, and next thing you know, there's a router that's attached inside it, and it's the Bosch, I forget, I think like 1617. It has the adjustable base already included on it, so they make it so you can put it on a router table without buying an expensive router lift. So I went to Lowe's the other day, picked that up, and now all I have to do is get some wood and put it into my my wing extension on the table saw. Got to figure out how I want to mount it.
Do you have a plate for your router to do that? 'Cause I have a spare one that's sitting around.
I don't have a plate because apparently you don't need one. What you do is you just take the base plate, you mark the holes, and you just have to get some longer bolts. So I'll countersink some holes and put it through the wood.
I'm going to give you some insight because when I first started out, instead of getting a router table, I tried to make my own. And I did that. And they do work, but you can't adjust the hole where the router comes up is kind of based on whatever bit. So if you're doing a smaller bit or if you're doing a larger bit, you can adjust for that in that type of table. And the kind of work you're doing, you're progressing. So you want something that can grow with the job you're doing.
No, it makes sense. I was thinking about that too. What if you have a little 1/4 inch bit, meanwhile you have this giant hole in the center? God forbid, that's a recipe for disaster.
If you're interested, I do have the hardware because I went and bought myself a router table, a stowaway one.
Okay. Yeah, that would be perfect. I'll give it a shot. What is it? Just a plate that you route like a little, almost like a rabbit into the top of something, or is it a full table?
It is the plate. You do the rabbit, and then you set it down. It has levelers on there, 2 per corner. It has a different insert plates in it and like a chuck to basically turn it. It's a pretty nice plate. I would have definitely used it, but I don't have the space to utilize it, and the router table I have, it's perfect for what I need. I don't need anything huge right now. And in the future, if I ever do make one, I'll just come to your shop, steal back.
I was gonna say, I where it's gonna be, so you could always just come here and just take it away. And then I might cry a little bit, but I'll get over it.
That's what, 2 episodes that we got you crying? Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right? No, it's okay. It's okay. So besides what's on my bench, what's going on yours?
Well, I'm still working on the Big Thor hammers. They went from 3 feet to 2 feet. So, yeah, proportion-wise, the 3 feet wasn't looking right. The hammer heads are large. They're going to be about 9.5 inches long and about 4.5, all 4 sides there. Mm-hmm. So I threw it on, the wood I was going to use for the handle, measured it out, and I was looking and I'm like, this looks more like a sledgehammer than it does a Thor hammer. Talked to the client. They agreed to make it 2 feet, and it looks much more proportionate than what I had designed in the beginning. So that's progressing nicely. I'm going to be working on that in the upcoming week here. Also completed a sign, so that's hanging up in someone's office. It was a birthday present. What else? I also did the stove cover finally and got into, for the first time, using the Cricut Maker. It's my wife's gift that I got for Christmas, and I needed it for some decals for the actual stove cover. Never used it. I just, went in there, started using it, worked out fine, put the decals on there, and spent the rest of the day making decals and shirts and, doing a bunch of stuff. It's a pretty cool machine. It can cut the decals. It could do, obviously vinyl. You can make shirts with it. You could do balsa wood, which I might kind of integrate with my laser and, use them both for maybe the same project. Maybe print a picture out and do a puzzle on the Cricut. So the Cricut cuts out as a puzzle. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah, craft fair stuff. Even stuff for like my kid. You got to use what you have, and you have all these, CNC machines, quote unquote. Might as well use them. See what they could do.
Real quick with the balsa wood, can you? Because I just thought, like you said about the puzzle, if you got a small piece of balsa wood, you could engrave something with your laser and then have the Cricut cut it out into like puzzle shapes, if I'm correct.
Yeah, essentially. That's at least the plan. Interesting side note. This week I actually tried that with the laser. I created an engraving. I got a puzzle piece layout and I threw it on top, and I was cutting the puzzle, and I noticed I had to adjust the laser, and I finally got it so it was a very fine burning, but you barely see, and still cutting. But regardless, the picture is kind of has a little bit of burn on it, and you can correct that with tape. But it's very slow in the laser to do that. It takes multiple passes. A lot can go wrong. So if I do a really nice engraving and I want to make a puzzle out of it, I'm thinking I could throw it in the Cricut, and have that cut clean lines and do the same thing.
I did not know that thing could cut through balsa wood. I only thought it was like a vinyl maker and a t-shirt maker. That's pretty neat.
It takes a different little head that you can throw a marker in there, so you can do like cards. It draws pictures. You can cut vinyl. You can cut paper. It does a whole bunch of stuff. But there's also a tip for balsa wood, and I believe we have it. I think I'm gonna give it a go as long as my wife lets me use it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious on how that comes out because that might actually push it more. Maybe my decision of getting one will actually be pushed because I keep looking at it. I was wanting to do the my own logos or whatnot with decals, and then we've talked about it before with doing balsa wood little like
Inserts.
yeah, for with your logo on it. I just actually picked up a whole pack of balsa wood after you told me where you got yours. So I went on Amazon, picked up a pack, and I'm going to try that laser out probably this weekend that I have on the 3D printer that I got from my father. Because I was fortunate enough because my real quick story, my father, of course, had bought a 3D printer and used it, I think, probably like 5 times just to make random stuff that just sits on his desk at work. So now, he said to me, he's like, I just bought a better one and bigger. And I looked at him, I go, what? Why'd you buy another 3D printer? You have one. He's like, this one was different. So just take my old one. So I took it, and now I have a 3D printer with a small laser on it. So I'll see how it cuts through. Not even cuts the balsa, just engraves my logo onto it so then I can make like little medallions.
I have actually tried that with my laser, and now I've refined my use with it. I think I can produce those better. But I'm jealous, man. You're like Lord of the CNCs. You have a CNC machine. You have now a laser. It might be a small laser, but it's a laser. And a 3D printer.
Yeah, it's actually nice. Those corner radius jigs that that you put on a piece of wood and then you run it around, you flush trim bit. I keep wanting to buy a set. I see a lot of guys 3D printing them. I see aluminum ones. So I got the 3D printer this weekend, and within a day I had it up and running. And then next thing I know, I'm printing one of those corner radiuses, so I'll be able to use that on actually a little sign that I'm making, because I wanted to cut little rounded corners, but I didn't want them to look choppy. So I was like, well, I got a 3D printer, so I could just make one of them now. So I found a file and sent it to the machine.
You actually had me looking at them again.
It's a lot of fun.
For a while, I actually was talking to Peter from Petrie Workshop, and he was kind of guiding me in like what he's found to be the better ones. One of the ones he suggested I was looking at recently, and they're having a great deal on it. But it's the wrong time, wrong place for me at the moment. I'll eventually purchase one because I'm actually doing a whole bunch of laser upgrades and working with Peter from Petrie Workshop, and he's printing me a whole bunch of stuff. This is before I knew you had one, of course. But yeah, I definitely would like to do a whole bunch of projects for the shop myself once I get one, the round over for the corners and just the little stuff that like, it's irritating to buy because that like if you had this one machine, it would do it for you.
I bought from Rockler some of those hose clips for like when I got my sander. You have those clips that clip your sander wire to the hose so then it doesn't get all tangled. Well, I had bought a set of them. I love them. And then I found one on Thingiverse to, print. So I grabbed the file and sent it to my printer. And next thing I know, within, I think it said like 45 minutes, I had one of them. Was it the correct size? No, but it actually worked out better than I thought, because after I got done printing, I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to stretch it over the hose and it's going to snap. It's still on the hose right now and holding fantastic. So I'm really happy that, I was able to get a 3D printer, the way I got it. My father was never going to use it. I'm going to, I put it through more work than he has for the 4 years he's had it so far. So, it's nice to have, because you can get an idea in your head and you go, oh, I need something. It might take, a couple hours to print, but at the very end, now you have that thing, and now I can use it until it breaks, and then I can make another one if I needed to. So it's I'm limited to space. I'm only limited to maybe, I think I can go like 8 inches in diameter. So it's a small printer, but I can make those small things that I would like in the shop. If a handle breaks, I can make a little handle if I need it.
Yeah, they're pretty cool machines. I definitely would like to grab one at some point in time. If I see a good deal or whatever, I'm going to eventually grab one. But for now, I'm going to have to rely on maybe you and Peter for a little while.
Well, when my pops gets the new one, I know it's a larger surface, so then he's going to be living a minute from my house, so I'll just run up there real quick and print it out while he's not home.
A good deal, man. So I don't know if you saw, but I cleaned up the garage and got some extra space now. I don't really know what I want to do in that space. In fact, I messaged you asking for help because I've wanted this space for so long that I finally have it. I cleaned it up, and now it's sat there for like, I don't know, a couple days because I have no idea what I want to do with it. I think I want to throw my clamps over there. That way they're not over by my actual bandsaw. I want to put like a shelf system over there so that I can kind of store some of my stains and my polys and my finishing work. And then another area over there to store my finish work. That way when I am doing stuff, it's out of the way. But other than that, it's quite a bit of area for my shop. So I'm really excited about it. I just don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it other than some random ideas I've had by staring at it. It's pretty exciting.
Now, for those who don't know, what kind of space is it? Because I remember from the picture it was a wooden shelf that you had made, like a few tiers of it, correct?
Yeah, before it was holding like our Christmas decorations and stuff like that. Stuff that you're going to be using yearly and you want kind of like easy access to. But in the beginning, I didn't know that I wasn't getting into woodworking to this extent. So we used the garage as a garage, at least a portion of it, and then the rest of it was, the workshop. Well, as I get more into it, I need a little bit more space. I thought this would be a good time to, grab everything, throw it into the closet upstairs, and then utilize that space for the shop. I'm really looking forward to doing something with that space, but I want to think it through before I just throw something over there and have to change it a half dozen times. I have the space. It's open. I can throw stuff over there right now, but you should be seeing some progress with that in the next month or so. I'm getting a bigger build, one of the bigger builds I've done. It's not quite like the bed frame I just did. It's going to be a farmhouse table with a bench. I already got half the payment in, so I can go ahead and get the materials. I'm really excited about doing this because, well, I've always wanted to do a table. I want to do a table for myself. This particular table is kind of like the style I want anyway, so it's a good project to learn what to do and what not to do. We'll put it that way.
With the farmhouse table, you see everybody doing breadboard ends. I did a coffee table with breadboard ends, and I did them with pocket holes. And now that I'm learning more, I'm seeing a lot of people doing them. I want to remake that, for the house, and because that one went to Kim's parents. So I want to make one for us, but I want to do it the way I've seen, with dowels and make it look aesthetically pleasing. One, you'll get that more, you'll see the dowels once it's finished. So then you get more craftsmanship that shows through. And I'm curious, you're doing breadboard ends, or is it just going to be no breadboard ends?
Well, I haven't clarified that with the actual client yet, but the picture they showed me had the breadboard ends, and it'll be the first time I do them as well. And like probably yourself, I've seen a lot on Instagram of like what you should and shouldn't do. I'm hoping to take those lessons in and utilize them, come up with a project that A, looks good, allows for that wood movement through the seasons. I'm building this, and it's going to be like in August, which is like New Jersey's like infamous hot month. And then they're not going to be here until September. So I'm going to have like a month to build this, and the temperature changes between those 2 months are a lot. So I'm kind of curious on how that's going to affect this build, but I'm going to have to do it, and I'll just keep you guys posted and like how that's coming along.
Yeah, I'm curious on it because, like I said, then if you learn, then I can learn from what you learn, because, like I said, I want to make another farmhouse style something. I've been wanting to build a table as well. I got a farmhouse style table from, I don't even remember where I got it from, but every time I look at it, I go, it's not real wood. So I'm like, I know I can build something. It might not be, 100%, but I know I could build something. So maybe with seeing your ideas come to life, that'll inspire me to build something for my house, and then I can get rid of the table that I got now.
Well, that's why we both love this community, is because we don't hoard information. That's not a thing here. It really is about sharing what we know, what we've learned, and making sure people don't make the same mistakes. I mean, regardless if you live down the street and we were building flags, it's the same thing. Like, we share information. I commonly will give jobs to people that live a couple blocks down. They do woodworking, but I have enough projects going. I'm not going to be like, well, you can hold on until I'm done. I'll be like, hey, this is a legit woodworker that's right down the road. One of them is MPG Creations. I'll be like, hey, man, here's a job. If you want to do it, contact the customer. I gave them your info. Here you go.
I love how makers, no matter, like you said, no matter if they're down the road, another state, wherever they are, will reach out to you to ask you one questions or two for help. And it could be helping questions, or it could be help, hey, I'm backed up. So, can you help build this for somebody? And actually, I just had that challenge coin rack got passed along to me by a maker who's only in a town over, actually where I used to live. He messaged me and said, hey, I don't have the time right now, and the resources. Can you make a challenge coin rack? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I never did, but I'm up for the challenge of it. And so he gave my info to the client, and then they reached out to me. We went over some fine details. And next thing you know, I have a challenge coin rack sitting in my garage right now, waiting to get picked up tomorrow. And that same maker a week later and says, hey, you have a CNC. I got a project that the guy wants a name and 2 insignias carved out on it. He says, I could do it by, hand with a Dremel, but he goes, I don't want to waste all that time. So he's asked if I would, be willing to. So I said, of course. Why wouldn't I? Help somebody else out. It's Bear Country Flags. And he's, like I said, only a town over. Really nice guy. Helped him out. And I could see more collaborations coming my way, especially with him. Another flag maker, does beautiful work. If you haven't checked him out, go check out his page, and then you can see the nice flag that him and I worked on together. So it's definitely nice being in this community and being able to collab with somebody, especially local. It's nice to do that.
Yeah, anytime you get to work with a fellow maker and produce something and the customer loves it, it's a win for both of you. I mean, it's advertisement for both of you as well. I might be hitting you up for a little bit of CNC action sometime in the future. I got a job that was asked about from the local USO here about doing a computer station that, the keyboard folds up and it kind of gets tucked away pretty nice. They're going to get back to me with some details, but they haven't mentioned anything about having the USO logo anywhere on the piece. But I think it would be a nice surprise to have that. They do a lot for the troops and everyone, and I think it's important to give them something even a little bit extra.
Of course. I mean, you always want to add that little surprise that they're not kind of expecting. I mean, that can be large as a carving. That could also be as, nice as a little thank you message on the back of the piece that you made. I just delivered that Marine flag, and I wrote on the back of it, thank you for your service, because, his story that he had told me when he ordered the flag, it touched me. So I said, I just don't want to hand him a piece with my logo on it. I want to hand him something that I wrote on. And so I think, adding that little bit extra, even if they're not expecting it, that goes a long way. And then they'll also remember who made it for them.
Oh, yeah, it makes it personal, because for these projects, they're very personal to you. You're taking your time, you're taking your ability, you're stretching your ability to its limits, or even if it's a project you've done 100 times, it sounds corny, but bear with me. You're giving a little piece of yourself when you create something, because that comes from you. And to make it even more personal for them, adding something they're going to love and enjoy, it's just a great feeling, especially when they see it, they light up, and they love the feature.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Or the mistake you turned into a feature.
Those wonderful mistakes that we all try hiding, and the ones that you can't hide, you just go, that's something extra. That's my talent through.
Yeah, talent or, building of talent.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Man, that let me know about that project because I'm excited about it. You know, that CNC is always up and running, so trust me. You send me the picture, I can get it carved out.
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm just waiting to hear back about some of the details, dimensions, and stuff like that. It was just, I think they call them a cold call where they, ask if you could do it. And they would like for you to do it, but haven't really heard back from them. But they're busy too.
Yeah.
So, a little leeway there.
Man, speaking about not hearing back from anybody, I know I mentioned it on the last episode, but I had a 6-foot flag that I got really excited about because the largest one that I made to date was a 4-foot wavy. And the gentleman reached out to me, and he said, can you make a 6-foot wavy? So of course I was like, yeah, why not? So I went through the dimensions. I made sure it was proportioned correctly. So I gave him the dimensions, said, here's how much it's going to cost and time frame. He goes, okay, let me get back to you. A little bit goes by, I always like to reach back out. Just maybe, hey, everybody's human, we're all human. Maybe you forgot about it. And so I reached back out. I said, any update on it? Wanted to see if you had any other questions on it or whatnot. Heard nothing back. It's disappointing because I wanted to build that thing so bad. And, I would love to build it, but I don't even know if I have anywhere to put a 6-foot flag that would, not just take up a whole room. So I would have to find that specific client that wants that large of a flag. It's tough.
Yeah, I hear you. Even with this table, like I've actually, in the last week, I got 4 inquirers about a table, inquiring about price and if I could build it. There's no way, not a way I could think of to fit that many tables in my garage without having to stand on one to build another.
Yeah. Well, at least once you build the first one, you can build the second one just on top of that. And then you have a new table workbench.
Now, granted, I do have higher ceilings than you, but not that high. So I'm running into an issue with that. So far, I got one to put a down payment on there, so I definitely have one. I have another one I'm talking to. We'll see if that pans out. And the other 2, I gave them a rough estimate based on what they wanted. And I haven't heard back. But like you said, people are busy. Mm-hmm. People are doing things. It's a different way of life we're leading right now, so I give them a little bit more time. After a month, I'll put their messages aside.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to adjust for that and be like, look, I'm taking this time to build this one table. I honestly don't think I'll be taking any other jobs that are, going to take up space during that time. My timeline for projects are going to be extended because I'm taking on such a big project. Mm-hmm. Relying on people to understand that. And if they really want something and want me to do it, I'll either send them to, someone like MPG Creations, or they'll wait for when I can acquire that amount of space to build that project.
Oh, yeah. And some people do understand that, it might take, extra time. And some people are very okay with it. I've had people come back and go like, I really need it like ASAP. And then, you're 5 projects deep and you're going, okay, well, I'll try my best to get it to you as quick as possible, but I can't guarantee anything. Some people understand it. Some people don't. It's just the nature of the beast.
Well, especially this being, we'll call it the hobby business, mm-hmm. Okay? It could be like, okay, well, right now, today, when I give you this quote, I can do this in 2 weeks and get it to you. No problem. Well, you go to work the next day, something lands in your lap where it's going to be taking up a week and a half. Well, that e-tech that you just gave now went from 2 weeks of you being able to, produce everything in a timely manner, but, slowly, proficiently, now to like a rush, 4 days. It helps when you get those customers and clients that have an understanding of like, hey, we understand this is not your, primary job. This is something that you do on the side, you love doing. That understanding goes a long way.
It's funny. I've said that point blank to some people that want it like ASAP. And I go, just so you know, this isn't my full-time job. I got a regular job that I got to deal with, and I got life that I got to deal with. And I'm going to try to get it to you as quick as I can because, I want to make everybody happy. I want to get it done for my own sake and then get it done so then they can, have a finished product. But you said it best. I mean, life can take a weird turn day by day. And next thing you know, you're not in the shop. I mean, last week, Thursday and Friday, I said, I got to go in the shop because I got projects building up and my body couldn't take it anymore, dealing with 4 hours of sleep every night. And it got to me. Thursday and Friday, I had to just fall asleep on the couch once I got home, and that was it. So, but at least on the weekend, I was well rested and I got some stuff done.
It happens, man. I mean, like, you can only go and go and go for so long before your body's like, guess what, buddy? You're resting tonight. It happens to the best of us, and especially with the fact, like, you work a full-time job, you're almost working 2 full-time jobs with the hobby, and then you get your personal life, which you have to make time for. So what do you give up in that? You give up a little bit of sleep. You give up a little bit of the other stuff you might enjoy doing that you don't have time for. So, I mean, it's a hard balance and something that we all, I think, struggle with. But we always find a way, mostly give up sleep and then pay for it later. But, yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, well, hey, it's at the end of the day, it's because we're doing it because we're passionate about it and we really enjoy it. And I wouldn't trade this for anything else. I love getting into that shop, even at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's still nice. You get to unwind. But this whole woodworking thing, I love it each and every day. I might make mistakes and then hate it, but when you look back at it, the stuff that you produce, and like you said, the clients, when they see it and they light up because you did exactly what they wanted or a little bit more, that's rewarding enough. And I could work with 4 hours of sleep for it.
I mean, like, you get used to it, but again, you got to take care of yourself, and once in a while get that, good 8 hours in.
You get 8 hours of sleep? That's a thing?
No, I don't. I have like a 4-year-old, so I don't get 8 hours of sleep whatsoever. I get time after they go to bed, and then I get the alarm clock of them jumping on me in the morning.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you want to get into some questions that we got sent in on our Instagram?
Yeah, we got quite a few this week.
All right. So the first question that we got in, it's going to be a 2-part question. He sent one to myself and one to Josh. It's from MCNC Designs on Instagram. He wanted me to explain my flag standing process because I mentioned it in, I believe, last night's story. Last night would be, we're recording this Wednesday? Last night was Tuesday. So, yeah, I don't.
What day is it?
I don't even remember. No, today is Tuesday. So yesterday was.
Today's Tuesday. I edit tomorrow, and then you guys get to listen to it on Thursday.
Man, I'm all messed up with my days. But anyway, on Monday I did a story, and I mentioned I'm using a new stain. I don't know if you've ever used it, but it's the Minwax water-based stain, and I'm not a fan of it because it's like mixed with stain. It's odd. I don't like it so much compared to an oil-based stain. But anyway, the way I stain my flags, if I'm doing a flat one, I'll glue it all up. I'll sand it down to its final grit, mark out where the union is, and then this goes for both wavy and flat. I'll take a razor blade and actually cut a light line into the glue line. And what it does is it breaks the fibers from one board to the next. So when you're applying the stain, it doesn't bleed right into the next stripe.
Do you use a straight edge or anything for that? Although I obviously can't do it on a car flag, but do you use it on a regular one?
My hands.
Man, I don't know if I can get like, it would be crooked. You would notice it.
I mean, everything on those flags, except the CNC work, is by hand. Oh, and I lie. On the flat flags, I use a template for the stars. But wavy flags, stars are done by hand. Everything. I mean, because I like that handmade aspect. Everybody can apply a decal. Everybody can just throw it on a CNC and have it do everything. But I like that handmade aspect. And then I feel proud of myself because I got it done. But yeah, I take a razor blade and literally sit there and on both that flag that's hanging in your shop was all literally just go from the union and pull back on that glue line and keep going on each and every one. And I try getting it as straight as I can. Sometimes I wander a little bit because I can't find that glue line. But, I have to, if I don't break that little bit of glue, what'll happen is once I stain a red stripe, it'll bleed right into the white. And then I'll have to sand and burn. And it's not pretty because I used to do it that way. And I had a lot of bleed through.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, did you pick that up on like YouTube or Instagram, or did you just kind of like it was common sense for you?
Well, I picked it up on both YouTube and Instagram because while I was watching how to Dremel out the stars, the gentleman went through, I don't remember his name and I really do because he gave a lot of good info on like the bit to use on and how to do the staining. But a lot of guys, when they glue up their boards, they're already pre-stained. So, they stain them prior to them gluing them up. And what they actually do is they take a razor blade where the union would be and kind of hammer it in. So you do double. You kind of create a little break in the fibers of the wood, and then also you create a barrier so the stain can't at all penetrate through and you don't mistakenly go too far. So there's a razor blade cutting off, the blue union to the red stripe. That's the way I've seen it. But they were also saying if you don't put a razor blade and keep it there, you can just score the wood. And I have tried it. Actually, a couple of flags that I'm doing now, I had to do larger chunks of different colors, and I just scored the wood with a razor blade, and you can literally go right up to it with a foam brush, and it doesn't even bleed through. That little bit of break helps.
I'm gonna have to try that sometime. I've heard you say this a couple of different times, especially like when we were doing the lives on Saturday. I've definitely run into a couple scenarios where that would have helped, but I just haven't tried it yet. So I'm going to have to either do a test piece and just give it a whirl. That way it kind of like locks into my brain so I could do it when I need it.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth a try.
It seems like, I mean, looking at the flag that you did in my shop right now, it is absolutely gorgeous. There's no bleed through, nothing. So it's a technique that works. I like it.
The only time I ever get bleed through is if I'm, trying to stain it and I'm real painstakingly trying to stain against that line and my hand like twitches a little bit, and then of course, the brush jumps and then I get stained on a stripe that I'm not supposed to. Then that's a little bit different. But man, that you could use that technique on kind of anything you have. If you have a piece that needs to be stained right next to a piece that doesn't, you can use that technique. And you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to cut, if the piece is 3/4 inch thick, you don't have to cut down a 1/2 inch. Literally, a light pass of that razor just to break those fibers works great. I mean, that was one of the best techniques I think I heard in getting that stain perfected.
Have you thought about using your sprayer and then taping it up, spraying it, and then, doing it vice versa like that?
No, because I never have luck with painter's tape. My very first wavy flag, I used painter's tape to block off the white stripes and then the union, and it just bled through every piece that I could ever imagine. So I don't spray now is my clear, and I don't have to worry about that running into each other.
Yeah, I've used it before for all my clears and stuff like that and my poly. But recently when I did that sign, I had some rattle can poly Minwax and I was spraying it. It was the last little bit. It was semi-gloss, but it had some semi-gloss, in the quart or whatever. And I mixed it up and I threw it into the sprayer. And I'm like 2 sprays, the front is completely done. And let it dry for like a little while. And then I threw another couple coats on there. It's a sign. It doesn't need that much, but things happen, and I want to make sure it had good protection.
Yeah,
so.
Of course.
But yeah, I definitely will set aside. I have 2 containers for mine. I have one that's going to be set aside for like poly, and the other is going to be set aside for like paint. Like all of our tools, you have to spend some time with them. You got to like experiment and then, figure out what works the best for those and yourself. But yeah, man, you definitely got me going a little bit more on spraying my projects at the end.
Man, spraying that changed my life when I started spraying. I used to brush it and I would get streaks upon streaks or air bubbles, and I finally got my technique down on how to spray where I can, about 90% of the time, I can do 1 coat clear and it looks like I have 3. That's how I finally got it to the point where I don't have a lot of, it's not rough. There's no bubbles. There's no streaks. There's no nothing in it. But that sprayer works great to do final coats.
Do you use Minwax water base, and do you water it down, or you just straight up use the poly?
It's how it comes out of the can. The only difference is I'm using the polyacrylic by Minwax.
Yeah, I use the same.
Only thing that I do is run it through. I think don't quote me on this, because I also last episode I did say that I have a 12-inch joiner, so I don't want to make a mistake and say I have 5-micron filters for the paint or the clear. But I run it through a filter, a real fine filter to get all the little particles that might be in there out.
Painter filter. So you basically pour it in and it pours. Yeah. Okay.
So, well, I mean, I just to let everybody and also MCNC Designs know, I will be doing a video at some point and posting that up on YouTube once I get my YouTube all set up and get another flag that I can actually film.
Now, do you have YouTube already set up like an account for your business?
No, I don't. Every day I keep going, I'm going to set something up, and you know how that goes. I just put it off, and I say I'll eventually get to it. By the time I get to it, somebody probably already took my name, so we'll have to see. Maybe I'll check tonight. Yeah,
man, if I were you, just go ahead and create the page. Even if you don't post anything for like, I don't know, a year or two, at least at least you have it, you know what I'm saying? And I should take my own advice because not that I really want to get into YouTube, but I'm sure eventually going down this road, it might become a possibility. So I probably should do the same. I never thought like in a million years I would be on Instagram as much as I am, nor sitting here doing a podcast. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it.
It really is. And, YouTube's another outlet for us because, we're limited to Instagram's 4-story limit. And then, you can only do so much. So YouTube is a great outlet. So then we can put those longer builds up because like I keep saying, people ask me all the time, how do you, stain your flags? How do you build your flags? What do you do that's different, And I really want to give it a go and put a video up there of a wavy flag being built literally from the second that I throw the 2x4s on the table sled to me grinding it out, to staining it, to clearing it. I want that whole build up online. I mean, it might, maybe I'll throw the whole video up there. So it's like real time, few days worth of video. No, I'm just joking.
Well, I'll
find out how to edit that.
Yeah, I'll give you a really long video to put you on your first one. Yeah, editing is, I definitely find out, especially with this podcast, like, it does take some time and it takes a little bit of a learning curve, but you'll be fine. Just, you got to try it. Yeah. But MCNC Designs actually sent me a question as well. He sent one to AJ and then myself. And he said, I really enjoy making small furniture, but I would love to build them with the intent of being taken apart. I've been thinking about how I'll do it, but I don't have anything yet. Any tips for that? Well, I believe it was the last episode. We were talking about how some of my furniture is able to, take apart and easy to move and stuff like that. Now, there are a lot of different ways to go about doing that with fasteners. The hardest part I find is when I go through a build and I want to mentally build it, I'm thinking about like what kind of joinery that I want to do for that particular build. That's the hard part to kind of get away from. Some of it you can do joinery and then do a fastener as well. And some of it you can't because like once you join that piece of wood, glue or not, it's going to be difficult for them to take apart. The best advice I can give you, take a look at the furniture you've bought from a big box store. Flip it over. If you remember how you put it together or what have you, just kind of study that. They do things for a reason. The hardware they're using, the way they're, putting things together. I want you to do better than what they do. Obviously, build a better product, build a better way for someone to take it apart easily. But you have to keep in mind, if you could build a chair with just an Allen wrench, that means a customer can build that chair with an Allen wrench and take it apart with an Allen wrench. That will make the difference between, them going back with you and wanting to build something else that comes apart than building something that you need an Allen wrench, a screwdriver, a wrench, socket, all these other tools. And it takes a minute for you to, get in that mindset. The biggest thing is when you design your furniture is to sit down and come up with what you're going to use then. I like to come up with a lot of stuff on the fly, but when it comes to, furniture, I'm trying to make customer friendly to take apart. that is where I spend a little bit more time designing and making sure I have everything right, because it is difficult to, you got to think like not a woodworker. You got to think like the average Joe and what they have in their house. There is a project that I did recently that I use a particular type of joint. Not one that I like using a lot, but it's one that I use through the whole build. And I made sure that they understood what I was using, so they knew they would need a particular device to take that apart. Now, if I had more time, I would have done it more with like Allen wrench style fasteners and gave them an Allen wrench with the build and called it a day. But I was on a timeline, didn't have a lot of time to do it, and that was just kind of how that fell. So hopefully that answers your question, man. If you have anything in particular you really want to talk about, like a particular build or how I do something, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Just go ahead and DM me and we'll start that convo.
I'm really curious. He said small furniture. I'm curious to see what kind of small furniture he's talking about, because as you were describing some things, I was almost thinking like, let's say an end table. Instead of it being easily taking apart, you can almost make something that might be able to get folded, so then it's smaller. So you don't necessarily don't have to, take it apart. Then, you can even eliminate the necessity of tools or anything like that. But I think I would love to know what he's talking about exactly, like what kind of furniture.
You're not far off there too. I haven't actually constructed anything in memory. I'm trying to think of anything now that actually folds up, but it is definitely something I'd like to try, but not for a client. I want to do it for myself first. That is something that I want to work out most of the details amongst myself before I get into, building something on a timeline ready for a client.
I almost, way back when I first started, I almost had a table that they wanted fold down ends on it. And I'm like, I was so new to this. I'm like, I can make a table, but I mean, it's not going to be 100%, but you want me to do what now? You want me to make a fold down end? I'm like, I don't even know if I can build that table 100% yet. I knew what pocket holes were at that moment in time. I can't think of that stuff, but yeah, I would like to see exactly how that gets built. Especially with something being taken apart. I saw this question and it intrigued me because I'm like, I'm thinking of furniture. I'm thinking of a coffee table or something like that. I'm like, how would I build that and be able to take it apart? How far apart? Like piece by piece or in chunks?
Well, you want to do it in like relatively big chunks. Like you don't want to have a coffee table be like 50 pieces. You want it to be like, like 5 or 6, something that's easily, goes together. So, I mean, like it's that planning stage. It's that, taking your mind frame of like, this is never going to come apart to, I need this to come apart. And, even when the fasteners are in, you got to ensure that it's stable enough to hold. So there's a big thought process while doing that. But we actually have a couple more questions. You want to go ahead and read the next one?
Yeah, it's by Kumo's Woodwork Journey. I've been talking to this individual, and he's a really awesome guy. He's just starting out, and he does some really awesome builds so far. But he asked, what do we recommend for staining and poly? An all-in-one stain, or stain and poly separate? And then what kind of applications do we do? Or what would we recommend and use? So for myself, I know staining and poly are separate. I don't know if I want to use a stain and a poly all in one, only because I'm not sure how it'll come out. I'm afraid that not going to come out the way I want.
Too good to be true.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, will it work the way I want it to? I mean, maybe one day I'll pick it up and try it, but I don't want to try it now when I'm, trying to do a build and whatnot and trying to make it the way that I have made my builds. So my answer is to stay with a separate stain, let that, soak in, do its magic. And then at least with the poly, I can apply 1 or I can apply 5 coats if I wanted to. And I can get the kind of depth that I wanted to. Without having to worry about, will it because I wonder, will a stain and poly really like, does it allow you to do more than one coat? I'm going to probably say no, because then you're going to be staining over your poly.
I think you could do more than one coat, but because it's
Yeah.
mixed together. I mean, like, it's not like there's a layer there, but I think it would become a lot darker than you just doing, because I actually ran into staining darker project earlier when I did that sign. They wanted a black stain. Well, initially when I put that black stain on there, waited a little bit for it, I ran the rag over it to wipe it off, and it was like a dark brown. I'm like, okay, so I sent a picture. I'm like, is this dark enough? And they're like, well, we want it a little bit darker, so I threw some more stain on it. You know how this goes. With that combination of poly and stain, I'm not sure that you could have those little subtle changes and then get to the desired. I think it's like, it might be just like paint. You lay it on, it's that color, and you lay it on more, it gets darker.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it. I would like to pick it up to try it at least. I mean, hey, I might open up a new avenue and like this would be the greatest thing ever. But for now, I'll stick to my stain, and my stain of choice is Varathane. I absolutely love it. I have used Minwax stain, but I don't care for it so much. And it's not even the newest one that I picked up, which was the water-based. Even their oil stain, the depth of color from Varathane is unreal compared to the Minwax. And the poly that I use is Minwax polyacrylic. And my application for stain is I'll either use a foam brush and then wipe it off with a shop towel, or I'll put it on with a rag and then wipe it off with another rag. And then for my poly, I only spray. I did try a wipe on poly on one item once before, and I liked it because it didn't add so much, shine or anything like that. It gave it a little protection and actually brought out the grain. I think it was ash that I used, and it actually made the ash pop without making it too shiny and like look too gaudy almost. That's the only way I could describe how I didn't want it to look.
I think we actually should try, since we're doing the podcast thing, maybe do a segment on different types of poly and stain. Like get some samples and test them out, see what we think, and we could talk about it for the length of the podcast or whatever. But if you guys would like to see something like that, hear something like that, reach out to us. It might be something we could do. And then maybe we could do something with like Lou or something in the future to kind of answer some of the questions you might be having. AJ, I don't want to speak for you here, but I haven't used the entire variety that's out there. I use Minwax a lot. I haven't used the brand that you picked up. I'm kind of curious myself. You're saying there's a lot more depth to it, and I'd like to check that out myself.
I'm telling you, I think Home Depot has Varathane. It's amazing. I even heard good things. Actually, I also have a Varathane poly that I'm using. It's a spar poly, water-based spar, because I have to make 4 flags for outdoor use. So I needed to pick something up. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of it right this second, just because it's not spraying the way I wanted it to, but I might have to tweak it a tiny bit.
You might have to water it down just to get it spraying correctly.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll get a good, coat on it. I'm almost thinking it's a little thicker than the polyacrylic. So I might have to, instead of moving at my normal rate that I do when I spray, I might have to go just a tiny bit faster so it doesn't clump up as much. It still came out really, really nice. Great finish on it. But I was getting a few air pockets where normally on the polyacrylic, I have almost no air bubbles whatsoever.
Now, with that poly that you're using, does it have the non-yellowing feature as well?
Yes.
I think most of them do now, but I'm kind of just asking for a friend.
No, I hear you. But that was one of my biggest things. I didn't want it to turn, in a year or so. And it's not going to be full-time outdoor. The client said, can you make them in case I decide I want to hang it outside? So I said, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
So, the majority of its life, it's going to be spent inside. But, they do have that option to put it outside. And real quick on my application, I got a Wagner sprayer when I first moved into this house, and it has a base station with a hose, and you have all the handle attachments. Well, I found that you have the detail finish nozzle, and currently in the shop, I think I have 6 detail finish containers sitting there, all with, I got satin, semi-gloss, full gloss. I got them all lined up. Oh yeah. So I need something, I just pull it off the shelf and slap the handle on it. The easiest way I found was to do that instead of filling it. Now I have to dump it. Now I have to clean it fully. Now I can put my other one in there. Because I was going between a semi-gloss and a full gloss at that time, so I only had 2. Then I found the matte finish in polyacrylic, and I went, well, now I need another one. And I didn't want to have to keep switching back and forth. Easiest thing and the best, because I can just go into my back room, I pull it off the shelf, and I have it immediately. So I don't have to wait, for stuff to dry and then fill it back up.
I actually, I just got my sprayer not too long ago. I don't know. I would say maybe like 4 months ago. I got the Home Right, and it works great. You can get extra containers like yourself. I have 2, and I've been kind of using one for like poly and the other one for like paint. Because unfortunately, some of my projects I have to do white. Not my favorite color, but just so much white projects sometimes, especially the farmhouse style. It just you're spraying white after a while, and like I have a black car.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, I have a nice little film now on that car. But it's getting up there in age. Regardless, I digress. So Trails Custom Woodworks sent us a question as well, and he says, "What is your favorite tool that we have in our shop?" What's your favorite tool, man?
Put me on the spot now. I was going to think about it while you answered yours.
And go.
If I had to pick one right this very second, my favorite tool, and this might be a shocker for you because it's not what you're thinking, I would say would be my Bosch glide saw, the miter saw. That is my favorite because of how amazing it feels to cut wood that is actually accurate now, because my other saw wasn't.
Yeah.
But actually my pops came over this past weekend, and he hasn't seen the new saw since I got it. And he goes, "Oh wow, you got a new saw?" I was like, "Yeah, check it out." So he's moving it and looking at the articulating arm that's on it, and that thing glides so smooth. And they tell you you're supposed to adjust it after you get it, because they apparently set it as a loose gliding feeling. Yeah, the book says you should adjust it after you unbox it.
So it's stiffer?
Yes.
Okay.
But I like it because literally I can touch it and the thing just glides nice and easy back, and you could pull it forward nice and easy. Absolutely best saw I think I've ever laid hands on.
The only reason I could think for that, and this is speculation, it's not like, I read the textbook on this, is they do it loose so, nothing gets jostled too crazy. And they want it to be a little firmer because when people are moving it, they don't want to actually jerk it to the left or right. A little firmer will give them a little bit more of a guide. Us having, I don't want to say lower quality saws, we're used to have to basically manhandle that saw to do what it wants. And now that you have a good quality saw, it's just so easy, and you're not, I don't think, fall into that habit because of the fact, you've had the saws you had in your past. And believe me or not, what it's worth, I thought that was what you're going to name.
Really?
Yeah. Like, honestly, I was between that and your new sander, which I know is a great addition, but I don't see it as your favorite tool. I think it's, a good addition. Beyond that, I don't think it's your favorite.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but like you said, it's favorite only because it has its spot in the shop, and, a sander sands. At least a saw, I could do multiple cuts and whatnot. But all I have to say is you mentioned it and said it perfectly. I think the reason that they really have you adjust it to a tighter tension is the other day when I built the rolly cart that I made for it, I went to go pick it up off the floor and I forgot to lock the arm. And man, I barely tilted it forward and it's, almost slid completely towards me. So I, had to stop it real quick and then lock the arm so it didn't move anymore. But man, I must have lifted it off the ground an inch, and the thing almost slid right into my chest. But Luckily it didn't, and luckily the saw's okay. I would have been fine, but I'm glad the saw's okay. So now, what besides my favorite tool, what would yours be? I'm trying to think, and I know it
You do?
without you saying anything. Yes, I know.
I don't think you do. I think you're thinking the bandsaw.
Maybe.
Yeah. I do love my bandsaw. I love my track saw. But I mentioned it, I think last episode, the tool I couldn't live without is my router. I have found so many uses for that, and it helps me in almost every build. It's a very versatile tool. Like, you use it in so many different ways. Use it to trim, use it to do rabbets, you could do joinery. I mean, you could round over, chamfer. I mean, like, there is literally 1,000 different things you could do with a router. And, you could put it in a table, you could do a handheld. I mean, CNC machine is a router, essentially. Control. I mean, it's just an incredible machine that we utilize almost every time we're in the shop. At least I do. I think it's underappreciated as what it is. I mean, I love my bandsaw, and like, if you asked me any other day, I probably would say my bandsaw. But a router, like, it's one of the first tools I had, one of the first serious tools I had, and I've had it and used it, like I said, almost in every build. So it's my favorite tool.
Now you have the Bosch Colt, I believe, right?
Yeah, the Bosch Colt. It's a 1.25 horsepower, and yeah, that thing just goes. I also have a Craftsman, 2 horsepower something. Those two, I mean, I could do almost every job with. I would like to get a little bit bigger router just for flattening and some of the bigger jobs, but that's not a necessity. I don't need that at this moment. If I come across a great deal, almost like the 3D printer, right time, right place, I'll probably pick one up. Or Christmas.
Yeah. Real quick, I was in Lowe's the other day picking up the new Bosch router, which is the larger one. But I saw, because I thought you and I had the same exact trim router. I have the lower Bosch, and
the 1 horsepower?
Yeah, and I have to say, that thing is amazing. Even though it's a little less horsepower, I used one of the Infinity Mega Flush trim bits. And I mean, this thing stands, I think, like 1.5 inches tall. And I slapped it in that little trim router, and it looked so ridiculous because this huge bit is sitting in this little router. I mean, the bit is like a third of the size of the router, and I'm going, I don't know, this isn't right. Something doesn't seem right, but it worked and powered right through it.
Yeah, I mean, they're just incredible tools. Like, table saw is a great tool, obviously, to be a woodworker. Bandsaw, joiner, all these tools, they hold a place in your shop. But just think about how many times you pick up that router to do something. It could be literally a cutting board. It could be adding an edge to a piece of furniture. I've already gone through all this, but essentially it's a great tool. And if you're going to invest some money, I would definitely invest into a good router, because it's probably one of the tools you're going to be using in every build, much like your table saw and everything like that, but it's a little cheaper.
Yeah. Now I have to ask one last thing. You had mentioned that you used your trim router to lay out your dovetails for your match fit system.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a measurement from the very edge of your router to the center of the router. And do you remember what that was?
I think it's 2.5 inches, maybe.
Mine was when you told me to use the 1/4 inch bit to route the little groove for the base of the box that I'm making. I said, let me measure how far this, the edge is to the center.
Yeah.
And of course, mine was 1 7/8 inches. So now I had to add, and I hate math. And I'm going, why couldn't you just be 2 inches? Like, make it easy for me at this point. So now I had to add it all together. And the first person I thought of was you.
Yeah, I actually posted about it on our, Sawdust Nation podcast Instagram page about the block I use and, the track I use and how I set that up. But, someone out there be trying to do the same thing, and it's worth having. That little block sits in with my router stuff. I just grab that, and now I don't have to do any math. It's just, I line it up and go.
You set it and forget it.
Amen.
Well, I think we'll wrap this episode up.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions, but we'll get to those next week. If you can, send us some questions. You could DM myself at North Country Woodworking or AJ at Crafted in NJ. We also have a Instagram page for the podcast, Sawdust Nation Podcast. Lastly, we have a email account set up for the podcast, sawdustnationpodcast@gmail.com. You can go ahead and reach us there as well. And if you guys are interested in doing voicemails, go ahead, let us know. We might be setting up a voicemail account so you can actually do call-ins and we can air your voice and give you a little shout out in that way.
Definitely. And if you're posting something up and you want us to see it, also use the hashtag Sawdust Nation, and we could see it there. I already had a few guys DM me, go, hey, I'm gonna use this hashtag, and I go, sure, why not? It's gonna promote our little podcast that we're doing here and get the word out, so then we can create a whole nation of makers in sawdust.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, man. It's for the community and the Sawdust Nation that we're trying to create here. So thank you for listening to another episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.